Welcome to today's podcast. I am your host, Greg Helbeck, and on today's topic, I'm going to talk about is wholesaling real estate ethical, right? I see a lot of videos about this. Definitely want to give my own opinion on this. I got a lot of experience wholesaling houses. I've done almost 200 deals, and most of them have been wholesale deals. So before I get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Greg Helbeck. I own a real estate company called Velocity House Buyers. I've been doing this business for over 8 years now. So everything I share on this podcast is aimed to add value and to be a real, actual, practical video you can watch or audio you can listen to that will give you wisdom and not BS. So if you get value today, if you can leave a review and share the show, or if you're on YouTube, subscribe and like the channel, that'd be great. Today's topic is wholesaling real estate ethical? A lot of people, they don't understand wholesaling, and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. So to give you the answer right off the bat, I'm going to say, yes, it is ethical. However, you need to do it the right way. Right? So a lot of people, they get in the business and they don't have money. So they figure that the easiest thing to do is to wholesale, right? You don't need a lot of money to wholesale. So you think it's quote unquote easy. You get a motivated seller, you get it under contract, you sell it to a buyer, you make a spread, and you go on and do another deal. So the concept of wholesaling is very simple. The practicality of actually doing a wholesale deal is not so simple because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in a wholesale deal that people don't really talk about. So the first thing I'll cover is wholesaling itself. The idea of buying something at one price and then selling it for a higher price is not ethical at all. Now, the way that wholesaling gets unethical is when investors do a few things. The first thing they do is they misrepresent the seller, which means that they tell the seller one thing, but they don't actually do the thing they told them. So for example, let's say a new wholesaler goes out there and they want to go out and they want to do the business, and they tell the seller they're a cash buyer, they can close quickly, and they're going to promise to get their house bought quickly or whatever. So they tell the seller something. They really have no ability to close. They do not tell the seller that they can't close and they need to find a buyer. And they get themselves in trouble because they try to lock the deal up. They probably do it for too much money. And then they go out, they try to sell it. Nobody wants it. And then they go back to the seller. They cancel the contract and everything falls apart in terms of the transaction working out. So how do you avoid this? If you're new, you got to start somewhere. You can't, start with experience if you don't have experience, if that makes any sense. So the first thing you should do to not make wholesaling unethical if you're a new wholesaler is you got to understand transparency is the key, and sellers appreciate and like transparency, right? If you're upfront with the seller on what your intentions are, the seller's either going to agree to what you're trying to do or they're going to disagree, and then there's going to be no harm, no foul. So for example, if you tell the seller, I am actually not going to be the buyer, I am going to be getting this property under contract, and there's going to be a 7-day period in this contract that I'm going to actually go out and I'm going to do some due diligence. And during that due diligence period, I'm going to take a look at the property condition. I'm going to possibly get a contractor in here to see what the repairs are actually going to be. I might get a couple real estate agents in here to tell me what their opinion of the value is when it's fixed up. And I might honestly bring in some other investors that I know that might want to buy this deal from me after I buy it from you or profit. So I just want you to know, Mr. Seller, there's about a 7-day period here where I'm not going to know exactly if I'm going to be buying this house. And I want you to understand that if I wish to cancel this agreement, I have 7 days to do so. And I might do one of the 3 things I just mentioned. So you be transparent with the seller. You tell the seller what your intentions are, right? Another way to do that that's much more straightforward is just saying, hey, I'm going to find another investor to buy this from me after I buy it from you. And I need 5 days during this contract period to find that buyer. And if I can't find that buyer, I'm going to come back and I'm going to let you know, and we're going to figure out what to do. And there's a chance I might not buy this house. Just tell the seller what's going on. Tell them the truth. Here's the thing that you're not going to believe. That's funny. Do this. The seller, number one, generally agrees to this if they're motivated. If they don't agree, you're not wasting their time. They're most likely going to agree. And the third thing is, if you go out and do what you said you were going to do and you find a buyer and you make money, the seller knows about it. And that's all good for the most part. Most transactions, the seller's not going to care about that. Yeah, maybe 1 out of 20, they're going to get pissed, but it is what it is. That's part of the business. So the first thing to make wholesaling unethical is to be transparent with the seller if you can't close. The second thing that people do that is very unethical is they might be legitimate bona fide purchasers. They may have the ability to close, but they might not have the intention of closing on the property. So what does that actually mean? That means that in real estate, if you've been around for a while, it's very competitive. There's multiple people usually trying to buy the same property. So people, other buyers, they know this and they want to go quote unquote lock up a deal in order to tie the seller up. And then what they do is they turn around and they have an intention to renegotiate. So that is literally one of the shadiest things you can do. If you lock up a property just to quote unquote lock it up and you have no intentions on closing on that price and you're just trying to get the seller to think that you're actually buying the house and then a week later you're going to go change your price for no reason, that's very unethical. You should never do that. You should only make offers on properties that you're willing and able to purchase. Or like I said in the first part of this video or podcast, if you're listening, if you can't close on the property, disclose to the seller what you're intending to do. And we do this in our company to this day. Obviously, we buy houses, we have cash, we have lenders and all that stuff. But there are deals that I don't want to buy myself because of whatever risk factors in there. And I think we might be able to wholesale it. So what I tell my team is I say, listen, tell the seller we can give them the price or we can give them this price, whatever the offer is. But we need a 7-day contingency to find a buyer. And we got to tell the seller what we're planning to do. And I'm telling you what, most sellers go for that. And if they don't go for that, it's all good. And the thing is, when you do stuff like that, every deal you lock up that's like questionable is not going to close, but you're going to get a percentage of those deals that you didn't think were deals or you didn't know for sure. And some of those deals are going to turn into money, which is amazing. So you're going to be able to maximize more of your leads. So in order to make wholesaling not unethical, follow these 2 steps. Number 1, if you can't close on the property, tell the seller what you're planning to do and disclose to them what you're actually doing, aka wholesaling it. You'd be surprised how receptive sellers are to that. And number 2, if you can close, but you intend to not close at the price you negotiated because you wanted to quote unquote tie the seller up to then talk the price down afterwards, don't do that. That's how real estate investors get a bad name. So if you follow those 2 steps, you should be successful wholesaling. And hopefully you got value from this short podcast or video, depending on how you consume this. If you did get value and you want to wholesale a property with me or to me, email me, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or send me a direct message on Instagram at grego37. So it's got to be in the Hudson Valley, Reno, San Diego, or Delaware. If it's in those 4 areas, I'm definitely interested. And I'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks.